it sounds like one of the things you're saying is you don't want to have any layers between you and the company that owns the technology.
Yeah, you want to go to the ISO. What technology do you own? Don't be worried about your Schedule A. You're not going to get 90%,
Right.
but now you're going to have a better product.
Yeah.
They're going to have, something that comes with something.
Hey everybody, James Shepard here with another edition of the Merchant Sales Podcast. Today I've got Alan Kopelman back on the podcast. There's really nobody I talk to that's more passionate about the payments industry and the ISO community than Alan. He's just a great guy, got a lot of things going on. So we talk about a wide range of things, just a lot of different industry issues that are going on, talking about some things Visa's been doing lately, Ramp, just a bunch of different topics today. So we go from that. And then also, of course, Patti Murphy talks about today in payments, gives us all kinds of insights on holiday spending, as well as some things with buy now, pay later that's happening. And we also have an interesting discussion about real-time payments, RTP and FedNow versus the kind of legacy ACH. So if you're a payments person, you're going to really enjoy this particular episode. This episode is sponsored by Nativia. Head over to nativia.com/CC Sales Pro to check out what they have to offer. If you're an ISO looking to scale, highly recommend checking out ccsalespro.com/Nativia or nativia.com/CC Sales Pro. Both take you to the same place. So again, my name is James Shepard. I am your host, and let's dive into this week's interview. Hey everybody, I'm back here with Alan Kopelman, who's the CEO at Nationwide Payment Systems, also hosts the B2B Vault podcast. How you doing today, Alan?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back on, James. Always enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, there's not too many payments geeks out there, so I always enjoy when I get to talk to people that are really into the industry and talking about it. And so, Alan, for those in my audience who maybe missed the last episode that you were on, give everybody the 2-minute version of what you do and what your involvement is in the industry. I know that's kind of a big topic for you.
So 25 years plus in the industry, started Nationwide Payment Systems in 2001, started podcasting about 3 years ago. And that's an ever-changing thing.
Yes.
We interview business leaders from all sorts of industries and try to talk about things that business owners would want to hear about on the podcast, not just
Yeah.
payments
Right.
and
Right.
products that we sell. It's more of a business type podcast.
Hmm. It's
And
interesting. I was just interviewing Stephen Morris for another episode, and
yeah,
he also has a podcast for business owners, and he was just talking about what an effective, not geared to payments, but just for business owners. And he was talking about what a good way it is to, kind of just lends itself to a little bit of prospecting and networking, and they get a lot of clients from that as well.
yeah, it's a good way to, just let people know who you are and put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of other people try to start podcasts and they'll get about 5 or 10 episodes in and they crash and burn, but
Yeah,
you got to be committed to doing the
you
100
do.
episodes.
It is. It's tough to get through those first 100 for sure, especially that first one you put out and you get like 5 views on it, and you're like, oh man, what am I doing? So it takes a little while. But all right, so what we're gonna do today is something a little bit different. So Alan, I think, has a bit of a unique perspective on the industry as a whole, as somebody who's a really active ISO and really connected in the industry. And so we've got a variety of topics we want to hit on today, just kind of talking about what's happening in the payments industry and kind of get that take from the ISO perspective. So, Alan, I thought we could start off with Visa because, boy, they've been pretty busy lately with a lot of things. So let's start with the settlement. What is your thought? I know there's been a lot of debate about this. It seems like everybody's upset about it for a different reason. What's your thought on this whole Visa MasterCard proposed settlement?
So they floated something very similar to this a few years ago, a
Right.
reduction in interchange.
Right.
Now, I think what they're trying to do is I don't think it's good. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, we're going to take off 10 basis points, but they already gave Walmart and a bunch of other very large companies money. So why do they need a break too? Doesn't
Right.
make sense to me. But the other thing is why not attack dues and assessments? I mean, I started in this industry. I think dues and assessments were 6 or 7 points.
Right.
And
Right. Hmm.
we're at 14 basis points now. That's just out of control.
Yeah. Well, and I guess there's no mystery as to why Visa and MasterCard would prefer to focus on interchange, right? Because they don't get all of that.
Right.
Right? Dues and assessments they get. So that makes sense, I guess. So
Well, I think dues and assessments is way too high. I think if anything, they should come back and say, oh, small businesses, if you do less than $100,000 a month, your dues and assessments are this. If you do under 50 grand a month, maybe you get a lower break on dues and assessments and not put all these dues and assessments on all these
Mm.
businesses. The other thing I don't like about this Visa MasterCard lawsuit, the biggest thing is, and this even goes back to Durbin, still your PayPal, Stripe, Square, QuickBooks,
Hmm.
everybody who operates with Stripe, which there's, Wix, Shopify. I mean, we could just name a whole
Hmm.
list of companies, right? Lightspeed, right? It all operate under Stripe, right?
Right.
None of them, they haven't passed any of this savings on to the merchants.
Right.
It's an opportunity for us in the business to go and say, hey, there's this, even without this lawsuit, like since 2010, you're not getting any savings unless you're on an interchange pass through.
Right, right.
I've
Yeah,
seen
well,
it.
and it's such a good point because I think when people read the settlement, especially people outside the industry, and they read things about like, oh, you're going to lower the cost of processing, but they don't ask the question of for who.
Right,
Right. And so we understand that, of course, so many of these companies now, like you mentioned, Square, Stripe, think about Toast even, right, that does a lot of this
right.
flat rate stuff. Well, yeah, if you lower interchange 10 basis points, Toast is going to have a really good quarterly announcement, right? That I don't think they're going to be lowering their flat rate at all.
Right. And then, and also that didn't really go into because certain industries, right, already get a special rate. Restaurants get a special rate, doctors' offices, insurance companies, education. So are those are any of those emerging markets or
Mm,
specific industries like even nonprofits get a special rate?
right.
Probably none of that's going to be affected by it. None of
Right.
those are going to get any kind of savings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so we have the visa settlement happening. And again, for those who don't know, I mean, it's not by any stretch, it's not finalized at all yet. It'll probably take quite a while if the judge doesn't strike it down pretty quickly, which I think
One
most.
more thing on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that before we move on.
Yeah.
A lot of ISOs and a lot of attorneys spent, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars advertising this settlement, and they were going to get a piece of it, right?
Right.
If you remember, I mean, I've probably
Yep.
got calls from dozens of attorneys, these,
Right.
what we call those class action attorneys, right?
Yep.
I guarantee you, none of those people are happy right now because they spent a lot of money
Right.
advertising to get merchants signed up with them.
Right.
And when the last announcement of settlement came up, there was actually lawsuits that spawned from that where people were registered under multiple
Right.
companies.
Right.
And so that's kind of a
Yeah.
hot button too. Like those people are not for obviously, because they wouldn't get their 10, 20, 30%, whatever people agreed to.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It is kind of a sub industry within the industry there of collecting on these settlements. So, all right. So we talked about that. I want to talk about Vamp for a minute. So maybe if you could kind of give our audience just kind of the layman's version of what is Vamp in terms of how does it impact our industry, and then talk about the impact you've seen as an ISO yourself personally, and kind of how you see this playing out.
So the vamp is kind of interesting. So they changed like the rules on how many chargebacks people can have. And that's kind of, you look at it and you go, okay, who is this really going to affect? The only people we've seen it affect so far are the really high volume merchants. And not high volume in dollar, high volume in amount of transactions. So if somebody's processing 50,000 transactions, they're going to end up with, vamp ratios that could be out of control. The other thing that's happening is some banks they have too many big merchants,
Right.
right?
Right.
They're going to have to figure out, hey, well, what are we going to do with these
Yeah.
merchants? And the other weird thing is like they used to count chargebacks by federal tax ID number.
Hmm.
Now it's by mid. This vamp goes by mids and the acquirer. So you could be on bank A and they could say, hey, you need to get some volume off of us. And it
Right.
might be because your vamp is too high, it's their vamp is too high. They're
Right.
just targeting you to get some business off their books.
Right.
That's
Right.
kind of crazy. And I think we're going to see a lot of that going on as some of these banks start to get fined. And then they find the merchants, and the merchants are going to go, well, my vamp ratio is not bad. So why am I getting a fine? They're getting a
Right.
cumulative fine from the from the actual acquiring bank.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's going to become a lot more important to be aware of, a lot of times, Alan, I think the agents and ISOs out there selling, a lot of times they don't even know what sponsor bank, where they're putting these deals. I think they don't think of it that way. They're like, oh, I'm on Elavon or I'm on TSYS or I'm, whatever. They don't think about like, well, who has this been, because they have to balance it. And so if you're dealing with a bank that already had a lot of kind of high volume card not present merchant accounts with, some chargebacks going on, all of a sudden they may be coming down on you and asking you to move merchant accounts and things like that. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know the TC40, what that is. That's the
Hmm.
fraud. Oh, I didn't recognize this transaction. This was fraud. And that's where it's mainly targeted at. And a lot of that is friendly fraud,
Right.
and that's a big problem.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and they've never really targeted the TC40, just hasn't ever been a big part of the conversation until Vamp, right? So
Right.
that's like I think just even educating merchants that it's even happening is a big deal. A lot of them don't even
Yeah.
realize it's even happening.
That'll be like one of the big questions we got. Well, what's a TC40? And then we explain it to them, and they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. We're getting a ton of friendly fraud.
Right.
And,
It's like
you know,
why should the merchant be penalized for that is I think the issue.
well, I think you have a lot of businesses too that, let's say, like an insurance company or any type of company where somebody's signing like a contract and there's a recurring bill going on,
Hmm.
and then credit card is involved, and then you get, oh, I didn't charge my card. Well, you bought insurance like 6 months ago. Six payments came out. All of a sudden, you don't know what the charge is. No, that was
Right.
your insurance,
Right.
and it doesn't make sense to me. And we have those merchants taking ACH too, and they get nacha violations. But we kind of get that cured up because we send, then we'll just send a note to nacha. Okay, which give us the 10 contracts you want, or they just send it over,
Right.
and then the company sends over the signed, docu-signs with the person's banking information on there.
Right. Right.
They go,
Exactly.
okay, well, we obviously can't do anything about that.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. So, Alan, I want to switch gears a little bit. So, we have all these crazy things happening in the industry. We could get in, and on the last one, we talked a lot about integrated payments and point of sale solutions and finding the right provider. So, if we put all that together, as you're getting closer to the holiday, we're recording this right before Thanksgiving. And so, I'm sure you're already thinking about 2026. So, when you're looking at 2026 and saying, man, I want to grow and build my ISO, what are you thinking about right now as far as that strategy for 2026? And how is the kind of marketplace changes that we've seen over the last year? How's that impacting your strategy? Just think about next year.
No, I think for next year, we're honing in on our NPS 1 product, smart invoicing, and we're going to really go hard on that. And I think that myself and probably a lot of other companies out there are trying to figure out how to cut out reps. I hate to
Mm,
say it, but I see more and more from the ISOs that they're trying to cut out the reps. And then the other place where I think reps are getting cut out is from the software companies are starting to figure out like, hey, we need to bring in to our company somebody who knows this ISO game, right?
hmm.
And we need to be making the money on credit card processing. I just had a meeting with the software company last week, and they were like, hey, we want to, you know, partner with you because we want to learn payments and we want to learn how to make more money off payments because right now we're not making any money off payments. And
Right.
I was like, well, what do you care that you're going to piss off a bunch of people who maybe brought you business? And they're like, we have an investor, and the investor says we got to do it and we got to figure
Yep.
it out.
Yep.
And that's where we're at. And they were possibly going to engage with us on a consultancy
Right.
to help them figure that out. And I think we're just going to see all this creeping into our business.
Yep.
It's already creeped in, but I think we're going to see it creep in even more, and we're going to see ISOs go out just like your company has. My
Hmm.
company's already doing some stuff that we're getting ready to launch in 2026. So we already have it launched, but we're going to
Right.
be going hard on it.
Right.
And we're not going to allow reps to sell any of that stuff. It's not going to be a rep thing. We already have like, oh, click this button and then you can be boarded. We don't need a rep to do that.
to do that.
Yeah,
Sure.
we just need a funnel,
Right.
right? And funnel people through the funnel. And then maybe even if we have to, call them on the phone, send them an email, boom, boom,
Right.
boom, 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 and kind of cut out a whole. It's like when you look at that, you look at stuff like AI, automation, what went on in factories, Stripe, Square, PayPal, right? This ability to sign up a merchant account without talking to anybody,
Right.
right?
Right.
I think we're going to see a lot more of that, as companies start to figure out that they got to get on that battlefield, you know.
Yeah. So let's go back for a second. So at the beginning of this, you were talking about how your ISO, along with a lot of others, are looking at ways to potentially cut out the agent, right? So talk about that a little bit more. Is that purely just like, man, we want to get rid of that extra layer of cost? Are there other things you think are going to drive that? And I guess what should the agent who heard that and goes, oh crap, Alan's cutting out agents. Well, what about these other ISOs are going to cut out? What if my ISOs tried to cut out the agents, right? What should the individual agents be doing to prepare for this future?
I think agents need to figure out what companies have technology that they can sell, like learn the technology and then go out and sell that technology and make sure the ISO owns it. Not rent, they're not just like, oh, we're a reseller of blah, 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 XYZ software. They own the software. It's their software. I say another thing you're going to see. I see a ton of ISOs. Couple I deal with, Payrock being one of them. I'm trying to think who else I saw another company recently. They're all coming out with their own new terminals, like their own terminal,
Right.
right? So
Right.
they're not going to be using Deja Vu anymore, and they're not going to be using Verifone and Ingenico and all this. They're going to Newland. They're going to um, what's the castles. They're going to these
Mm-hmm. Yep.
companies and going to
Right.
put out their own terminals.
Right.
And I think that's kind of a thing where agents have maybe gone a little too far on a lot of things like, oh, I'm going to program my own deja vu terminal. And then we end up having a merchant call up going, well, I'm having a problem with my deja vu. And then we find out the rep programmed at the 4%, the merchant signed up at 3.5%. And
Right.
then the guy wants to,
Right.
the guy doesn't realize he called the wrong person to get his terminal fixed.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting, right? Because the hardware itself, like you can go direct to a manufacturer, like for full stack payments with Stackably, we did SoonMe, right? And so you can
Right.
you can find that hardware just like Castle or whatever. You can get that, but then the question is going to be who has the software on the device. And unfortunately, for a lot of these companies that I admire and have a lot of friends over, but the problem with it is when you're looking at valuation for your business, whoever actually owns the software that the person is using, whether that's on the terminal or on the web or on the native mobile app or whatever, there's a big valuation difference there. There's an idea of like, oh, well, you're just using, Ingenico or whatever. It's like, well, but who has the software app that people are using? And of course, we have people building their own apps that run on Deja Vu or that run on, Valor or whatever. So there's ways to still do that, but yeah, I agree with you. I think the whole hardware conversation is going to be interesting because it's still hard, but it's getting easier to build the software that you want to run on your own hardware.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting time to see how many companies either go out and buy a point of sale system
Hmm.
or, how many of these, you know, young entrepreneurs are going to pop up with software. You don't need a lot of merchants. I was explaining
Hmm.
to some couple of young guys last week. They were like, "Oh, we want to make money. We made this software and it'll do this, this, and this, right?" And they're showing it to me. I'm like, "Okay, that looks cool. Like, how are you gonna get customers,
Right. Right.
and all that, and how many customers, and how are you going to do customer service, and how are you going to board people, and how
Right.
long is that going to take, right? And
Right.
you got to know all of these things. You can't just say, I'm going to sell it to this guy, and then it's going to take me 2 weeks to program it. The merchants is going to leave unless you tell them that in advance, like what's going to
Right.
happen. And they were like, well, how many merchants do we need to be making, I said, how much money do you want to make? So they threw a number. And I said, well, if you had 100 merchants, let's say time with, dual pricing, let's say you can make $300 a merchant. That's a lot of money. 100 times 300, 30 grand
30
a month.
grand a month. Yeah.
Okay, well, now what can you do with at your business with that much money? And then take that for 200 merchants, 300 merchants, 500 merchants. If you have 500 merchants and you don't need a lot of development on the product you have, man, you got a pretty good business right there.
Yeah. I
You
think,
know,
isn't it interesting, Alan? I think the tough thing right now is there's so much opportunity out there. And I think that our industry has been not very good at focusing, right, on like where's the right fit for my solution. We've kind of been this very like scattered approach, and I think that ISOs and agents are all having this kind of withdrawal symptom of like, no, stop trying to sell everybody. Like, don't sell those people. Only sell these, because like you said, it's like I only need to sell 500 to make a huge amount of money. So I can pick 500. I mean, that's a tiny, if I can get 10% of a 5,000 merchant marketplace and sell
right.
500, it's like, well, 5,000, I mean, you could go after, like, I don't even know what an example would be, but I mean, you could go after like food trucks that specialize in selling hot dogs in New York State, and you're probably got enough. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like it's something like, something like, oh, I'm going to go after, let's say, dry cleaners,
right.
right? Or something. You say, oh, I'm going to make this special software, going to be great for dry cleaners. Boom, 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 boom. Dry cleaners use old software. I mean, I see giant computer
Oh yeah,
thick on
absolutely.
the counter. That thing's like running on DOS or something,
Right.
right?
Right.
So somebody goes and makes that, and then they say, okay, I'm gonna go out and I get 500 dry cleaners paying me a SaaS fee plus credit card processing.
Right.
Boom, you sell 500 of them. I
Right.
wouldn't say dry cleaners are doing great today, but that's probably not a really good. I mean, I can tell you, we have a few dry cleaners. They used to do like 200 grand a month. Now they're lucky if they do 30, 40, 50,000.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not like everybody's wearing a suit. People dress like me. They're not putting on a jacket like James has on. So,
I'm one of the only people still using the dry cleaner, right?
yeah.
So yeah, no, it's true though. I think again, it's going vertical specific, and so I think what I hear you saying to the agents is, you know, look at technology as you go into 2026. And it sounds like one of the things you're saying is you don't want to have any layers between you and the company that owns the technology. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
You want to go to the ISO. ISO, what do you own? What technology do you own? Don't be worried about your Schedule A. You're not going to get 90%. Maybe they'll give you 70%.
Right.
But now you're going to have a better product. That product is going to be a lot more to sell than a bunch of accounts with a bunch of deja vu machines.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to have, something that comes with something,
Right. Right.
going to
Absolutely.
be because the software, I can tell you right now, any merchants that we've sold like a point of sale to or a very specific e-commerce solution or an invoicing solution, I've merchants that have been around for 15, 20 years because we put them into a product that they're not going to leave. They're like, oh, we like this product.
Right.
That's it. Or they did a deep integration with an API
Right.
with web hooks and all kinds of stuff for invoicing that
Right.
we've done. And we have companies, that are processing millions of dollars using those systems. They're not going to run off and go reprogram everything.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. Okay, last one I want to get your thoughts on, and because I was thinking about our last conversation, some of the stuff we didn't get to dive into as much as I wanted. And one of them was Clover. So you mentioned Clover last time. Obviously, super popular solution for ISOs and agents today. What are your thoughts on Clover? What are the pros and cons?
I mean, pros and cons, like anytime you have to go out and install a point of sale system, it's just a time suck.
Yeah,
So you just got to be ready for that. I mean, I've seen merchants using a Clover and they use it like a cash register. They're not even really even, it's not really even programmed to do anything.
right,
They're just having the most expensive cash register in
right.
the
That you can get
history sitting on their counter, right?
right.
So, you have to figure that out. I mean, I know some guys, they like selling like, oh, I'll sell one station restaurants, right? And that's what they do.
Yep.
They go out, small menu, right? And then
Hmm.
you'll see somebody and you'll talk to them. They'll be like, oh, I sold this guy. He had a bar. They had takeout. They had waiters. They wanted flexes to carry to the table, kitchen displays, blah, blah, blah. I'm stuck in the place for like a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because you bid off a big merchant like that, right?
Yeah.
But do you want to be spending a month doing that? And the other kind of that's one problem with any type of point of sale, unless you have extra people who know exactly how to do it, because you're going to have to support it too and take phone calls at 10, 11 o'clock, 1 in the
Right.
morning,
Right.
merchants. And the other thing is, Clover, a lot of companies, we talked about this, the antagonistic group or who are companies like Clover who now have clover.com and market directly to their marketing. That clover.com is aimed at the same person who would probably buy Square.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
who it's for. The
Yeah.
person's
Absolutely.
either looking at Square or that, and maybe
Right.
they're looking at Toast.
Right.
And they don't want to talk to any of us. And
Right.
if you don't build a system like that for anything that you're selling in the next year or two, I don't know where you're going to get business unless you're
Mm-hmm.
going to go, you got to go up a level. It's like I was talking to another guy about restaurant point of sale, and he's like, "Yeah," he goes, "We don't deal with down here. We don't deal with over here." He goes, "Our target is 2 million." So I said, 2 million a month or a year? He goes, a year. So I go, that's like 150,000 a month. That's their
Right. Right.
target merchant for a point of sale, right?
Right.
And then, they have install guys and people programming the menu, and then they have
Yep.
somebody to go out and do the install.
Right.
So, you got to look at your target, where is that target,
Yeah.
because you go sell some guy 2 Clover stations and they're doing 10, 15 grand a month. Takes the same amount of time to do that as if the guy 3 stations and $150,000 QSR, right?
Yeah.
Same.
Yep.
You, you put 1 station over here, you put 3 over there. You
Right.
got to decide where your market is. Just like the same
Yeah.
thing, like our invoicing. We're aiming at people doing at least 50,000 a month.
Right.
We don't
Right.
want, we'll take people doing less. They just got to understand, well, don't complain about the monthly fee. You
Right.
know,
Right.
because you want, maybe you're going to grow, because
Yeah.
that's what you want to do. But that's what, people will pay
Mm,
for convenience, right?
mm.
And you got to charge what you're worth. Do you want to do everything for free? Because people are comparing Clover to Square right now, and they go, "Oh, I can just buy a Clover and I don't have to pay you, and I'll figure out how to do it."
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's a tricky thing right now. I think agents are a little bit lost. I think a lot of them that I've talked to, I'm just kind of trying because I think, and the other thing is, Alan, I think there's like a fundamental shift in the way that they're like marketing. So I think for them, they're like, well, but I just go walk into every business on a street and you're telling me I need to like understand technology. Well, I can't understand technology for 75 different types of businesses. You know what I mean? And so I think they're struggling with that. It sounds like you've made this transition of going to, hey, I've got the web forums and the online sign up and the podcast and all of that. What would you say to the agents that are struggling a little bit with like, man, I just go out in my local community and just try to sell everybody? Is that still viable? And if so, how do they do that with on the tech side?
Well, you got to just figure out like what sort of technology can you put across a bunch of businesses. Like, okay, if you had a good retail point of sale and the company provides all the training, so you don't have to go out and train the
Right.
merchant.
Right.
That's a good product, something for, businesses that need appointments. So that opens up to a lot of things like salons and nail
Mhm.
salons, and then,
Pet groomers and tattoo
pet
parlors. Yeah.
groomers and tattoo shops and all kinds of
Yep.
places that where there's an appointment needed,
Yep.
or maybe you figure out some kind of, I don't, appointment software that works for doctors' offices and it's HIPAA compliant. And then you can go out and you figure out these like 3, 4 products. And then you say, okay, well, I'm only going to sell restaurants if I can sell like upstream, right?
Hmm.
And then you have a good partner that's going to handle most of the heavy lifting for you.
Right.
You might make less money, but you're going to have more selling time.
Yeah.
You got to say, okay, I'm going to sell this.
Right.
I'm going to exchange, let's say, instead of 90% residuals, you get 70%, right?
Right.
or maybe you get 60%, right? But I'm going to exchange that for my time. Now, it's not just your time for selling that you get back, right? That's time you get to spend with your family. Maybe because you not there for a month doing an install, you
Right.
make four more sales. So now
Right.
you got four, you signed up four places versus one
Hmm.
place.
Right.
You got four times the amount of residual, even
Right.
though the percentage is less, you're probably ahead of the game.
Well, and think about too lifetime value, right? It's like
Right.
those accounts where you've got, and I love this, Alan, because it really does go back to partnership. It's like you want to find companies that not only own the technology, but that are willing to support the technology, both from an
Correct.
onboarding perspective and an ongoing perspective. So I think a lot of these companies will come out and say, well, hey, we've got, yeah, we have this technology. Okay, great. Tell me about the technology, and then tell me when I make a sale, what happens next? What do you do, and what do I do? And I need to make sure that what I do is something I'm able to do really, really well. Otherwise, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure, right? But then, yeah, once you get them on an integrated, system where they've got their payments locked in, well, they're going to stick with that technology 3 times longer than the terminal anyway. So even though you got 60% instead of 90, it's like, well, yeah, but that 60% you're going to have it for an extra 5 years versus the 90 you were going to get for 18 months when they decide to get rid of that terminal and go with the next person.
Yeah, you're going to have it locked in with technology, but you got to look at your time. Like, I'm not in, listen, we sell a restaurant software and we don't get phone, I don't get any phone calls. Okay.
Mm,
All the phone calls go to the help desk. I can log in, I can see who has issues, and, we check in with merchants. Hey, everything's okay. Boom, 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 boom.
yep.
Like that, and we make sure like what's going on. The same thing with the retail software. We can see when there's a ticket open and the ticket's closed,
Yep.
and then if there's someone's having a problem, we can call them up, say, hey, we see you're having some sort of issue. What is that issue? Maybe we can help them resolve it a little bit faster,
Yeah.
you know, with the help desk. And there's other companies that come out with different things like, oh, our point of sale now we can have Mandarin,
Yeah.
Spanish, Haitian,
Right.
then that opens up a whole nother market. You can go hire, you know, somebody that speaks that language and have them go out and sell merchant accounts because now you have support for that. You got to think about these, you got to think about these things. And as merchants get younger, they're going to want more technology. That's
Yeah.
just what it is.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been really insightful as always. Before I let you go today, if you would share with our audience a little bit more about what you do, excuse me, what you do and kind of where they could go to learn more about like the B2B Vault podcast or just kind of anything you want to promote to the industry of things that you're doing to add value.
So one of the things I wanted to do like 2 years ago, after I started the podcast, it's also, so you can go to b2bvault.info. You can find the podcast on YouTube. You can find us on all the podcast networks, the same places you listen to James, Spotify, Apple. And so that's the podcast. You can see a lot of great interviews. I interviewed a guy talking about startups that was the last podcast, and we talked about where did they find money, all kinds of interesting subjects.
Yeah.
For Veterans Day, we interviewed a veteran who started a nonprofit. Really great interview with Jonathan. I also write for the Green Sheet. A lot of the agents I know never heard of the Green Sheet before, and they don't know what it is. Greensheet.com. I write a column in there called Street Smarts. None of this is a promotional, like I'm not on James' podcast promoting my
No. Yeah.
business. We're discussing the business. Street Smarts is all about me giving back to the agents, talking about all different kinds of
Right.
subject matter from sales, marketing, all kinds of different articles. And I've done that column for the last 2 years, coming up on the last few months of doing that, unless I get invited back. And that's like what I enjoy. That's my like
Yeah.
giving back to the community. And always, I tell people like agents, you should be giving back to your local community.
Yeah.
I donated to a bunch of nonprofits recently, and we're helping feed, I don't know, about 40 or 50 families Thanksgiving. So
Yeah. That's awesome.
for Thanksgiving, but you can go to nationwidepaymentsystems.com, see what we're doing over there. We have a lot of technology products on our website. It's not for everybody. It's like I was telling James, you need to learn the technology that you're trying to sell. It's
Yeah.
the most important thing. You don't want to oversell or undersell or tell people the wrong thing when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
And that's the important stuff that's going
Yeah.
on. And I think we're going to see technology. We saw technology grow in our business like this past year, 2025. I think we saw inklings of it in 2024.
Yeah.
And from what we're seeing now, I think we're going to see just a lot more. And it's like I said, that, your competitor now is not just the other people selling out on the streets where you're selling. Your
Right.
competitors is what's going on the internet. Chat GBT
Yeah.
is answering people's questions. They're not going to Google anymore.
Right.
People go to Chat GBT to go get an answer. Oh, who should I call for this? Or,
Right.
they
Right.
they type in all kinds of things in there to learn about companies, or they don't just go to Google anymore. And
Yeah.
that's another big change in our industry is AI. And now is AI going to creep into
Mm.
merchant processing? It's already creeped into helping like ask frequently asked questions in point of sale systems and
Right.
things like that. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And so you got to really, I tell everybody, if you don't have a paid account for one of the
Yeah.
one of
OpenAI
the
or Gemini
AIs,
or something. Yeah.
yeah, get an account and
Yep.
learn how to use AI, if you're not using it. And I'll give one more pro tip for every sales
Please.
rep listening
Yeah.
to the podcast. Make yourself get your own website, whether it's going to be alankopelman.com or you're going to call your company, whatever, blah, 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 payments.com. Make your own company. Stop. You don't need to carry around 10 business cards.
Right.
Make yourself a one-page website at a minimum that
Yep.
explains what you do and who you are, right? Have your name, your address, your email address. Make an electronic business card. Use Linktree or something like that. Because a lot of people don't, you're talking to them, you can text them over nobody wants a text of your paper business card.
Right.
Get them an electronic business card. I made one. If I can make it, I'm 65. All you guys can make one. Okay. You have an electronic business card, James?
I actually don't, because I don't want people to have my business card. But yeah, it's funny. I'll go to the shows and people say, "Do you have a business card?" And I'm like, "No," because I don't want you to call me. But that's okay.
Okay,
I
well,
get
you don't want phone calls, so that's
right. I get
another
I get enough
story.
calls and emails as it is, so I'm good. But no, I know what you mean though. But when I was out selling, actually, I think this would have been, I guess, about 7 years ago, kind of towards the end of me being out in the field a lot. I actually, when it was first coming out, I had an electronic business card and it linked right to my LinkedIn account as well. And I got a lot of LinkedIn connections from that. I was able to network with it really well. So
Yeah, so it's really important. Yeah, and
it is.
have a good LinkedIn profile. People will go look for you. They will go look for you
Yep.
on social media.
Right.
They might not look on your Facebook, but they're definitely going to go to, especially larger merchants. Like
Yep.
when you're trying to sell
Absolutely.
upstream, they're going to go on LinkedIn, and you need to have, people go, well, I don't know how to post. Just go like, oh, so you saw an interesting, today, I saw an interesting article about the
Hmm.
hemp thing, right?
Yep.
So I posted it on my LinkedIn. I said, oh, what does everybody think about this?
Right.
Whatever. Post stuff like that,
Yep.
and be have some kind of activity on there that
Yeah.
shows like that you're in the payments business.
Yep.
And another thing is if you don't want to make a podcast, go out and guest on some podcasts.
Yeah. Absolutely.
People are always
Offer your
looking
payments
for
expertise.
Yeah, people are
It's a
always
hot
looking
topic.
for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They not be looking to talk about payments, but you
Hmm.
can say, "Oh, I want to talk about my entrepreneur journey."
Yeah. That's great.
Right?
I
Because
love it.
everybody's got an entrepreneur. I have a lot of people they contact me. Oh, we want to interview you about your entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
Okay, cool. We'll get
Right.
on there. That's your time to guest, and then you share those on your social media and your LinkedIn. And you
Yep.
know, somebody told me today they said everybody should. We were doing a online networking. Everybody should try to guest on 10 podcasts
Mm,
next year.
I love it. That's great. Well, Alan, it's always a pleasure having you on the podcast. I just love your passion for the industry and always sharing really good insights with everybody in the industry. So thanks for everything that you do and just appreciate you being on today.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Peace out. Carpe diem.
So, James, consumers went shopping in record numbers over the holiday weekend. Um, Took to their wallets, both physical and digital, to spend record amounts. This despite headwinds like tariffs and higher prices. National Retail Federation reports that a record 202.9 million consumers shopped in stores and online during the 5-day weekend.
Hmm.
Online drew the most shoppers, just under 135 million. Um, about 129.5 million shopped in stores, which is still pretty significant. Nearly all shoppers made holiday-related purchases, NRF said. They spent just under $338 each on gifts and other seasonal items.
Hmm.
Black Friday, not surprising, was the top shopping day, attracting a record number of in-store and online shoppers. MasterCard reports sales, excluding autos, were up 10.4% over 2024 Black Friday. Fiserv also reported solid gains, specifically at small businesses on Black Friday, 3.9%, which they said boosted sales numbers for an otherwise sluggish November. Now, Adobe Analytics said consumers spent $14.25 billion on Cyber Monday, pushing the weekend's online spending total to $44.2 billion. Now, according to data compiled by Salesforce.com, mobile shopping is now the default method for digital shopping. 79% of online shoppers in the U.S. use mobile devices to shop. 72% of orders came from mobile devices. Also, the weekend showed that consumers are using digital wallets as their default payment method. This, according to Salesforce.com. They said it accounted for 30% of U.S. online orders. But the big story from Salesforce's data involves artificial intelligence. The share of online traffic from third-party AI agent channels over the weekend tripled compared to the same period last year. AI-referred traffic saw significantly higher conversion rates, for example, when compared to social media platforms, 8 times higher.
Which makes sense because it's going to be so much more targeted.
Right? Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
it's like on social media, I see an ad. If I'm on ChatGPT, I'm searching for that thing when I click on it.
Right. Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
so another big trend was buy now, pay later. Spending on buy now, pay later reached 10.1 billion between November 1 and December 1, which was a 9% year-over-year increase, according to Adobe Analytics. So, with all this, it sounds, looks to me like, good news for agents and ISOs, when the residuals start flowing in next month.
Absolutely. Yeah. If they got a nice retail portfolio, then they're going to be having a good day when they get that residual.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, speaking of buy now, pay later, the Attorney General of 7 states are launching a joint inquiry into BNPL lenders. The 6 largest buy now, pay later firms, Affirm, Block's company Afterpay, Klarna, PayPal, Sezzle, and Zip, all received a joint letter from the 7 AGs. They want information about pricing and repayment structures, as well as consumer contracts, agreements, and disclosures. The letter was sent from AGs representing California, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Minnesota, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. U.S. Senate Democrats are also on the case. They sent letters to the same 7 companies requesting details on who uses these products and how many of them pay late.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Now, state AGs, as well as the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, have raised concerns in the past about buy now, pay later companies vis-a-vis consumer protections. In fact, CFPB issued a ruling during the Biden administration requiring these firms to adhere to the same federal consumer protection regulations that apply to other consumer lenders. but that rule has been scrapped now by the Trump administration. But it seems to me, I mean, with all of the um, momentum for buy now, pay later, there's going to be a lot more scrutiny. There, if not on
Sure.
the federal level, certainly on the state level. I mean, I have to admit, I went with buy now, pay later over Cyber Monday. I mean, I had this great deal from PayPal. It was like, you know, do buy now, pay later, and we'll knock off 10% of of your bill. It's like that's a no brainer, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
Huh.
yeah,
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think it'll be interesting to see because like buy now pay later is still relatively young.
right,
So it's always
right.
such a balancing act, I think, because you don't want to stifle the innovation, but at the same time you want consumers protected. And so yeah, I mean it's no doubt that in 3 years there'll be a lot more regulation around it. I think, the question is going to be over, how does it play out over the next few years as it scales and grows, but it's already becoming such a prevalent form of payment that, it definitely warrants some attention.
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of whether it's going to come from the federal, from the federal government or the state governments. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
one of the things that people thought was really cool was when I mean, a lot of the lenders, that is, when the CFPB rule got scrapped. But the problem that happens when you scrap um, federal rules is that the states come in, and there's always these nuanced differences from state to state,
Yeah, it makes
and
it a
it
lot harder.
becomes much more difficult for the companies to comply.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting.
Yeah. So next up, RTP, the Instant Payment Network, owned and operated by the Clearinghouse, has cleared a record $1.3 trillion in payments so far this year.
Wow.
This compares to last year when for the full year of 2024 they did 246 billion in payments.
Wow.
So that's like a 428% increase.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Meanwhile, Payments posted a piece last month about how misconceptions surrounding real-time payments and fraud are keeping many banks from using RTP or FedNow, which is the Federal Reserve's real-time payment networks. Many banks are functioning in a receive-only mode, which payments characterized as, quote, a halfway commitment that restricts the promise of instant settlement. Now, you and I have talked about this in the past offline. This whole idea of receive only really kind of like, you know, it it makes it the promise. It diminishes the promise
Well, yeah,
of
it's
instant
like
payments.
what's the value? It's like what we care about is being able to send and receive in real time.
Right,
So
right.
if we can only send, well, that doesn't really do very much good.
No, it
So,
really doesn't.
yeah.
And data, just as an aside, data from the Association for Financial Professionals found that just 2% of firms have experienced fraud on RTP or FedNow. Now, just by way of comparison, check fraud uh, was reported by 63%.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and again, to me, there's something fundamentally, it's like with the problem with ACH in particular is the fact that it's not real time. I mean,
right,
that's like 80% of the fraud, if not more, is
exactly,
because of the fact that it's not real time. So somebody has the ability to say they're going to make a payment with money that they don't have,
right.
and then or they're able to make a payment. Like the one thing I'd be really interested to find out, Patty, I haven't looked into this yet, but I wonder what the kind of the clawback, I don't know what they call it, but I wonder what that looks like for RTP. Like, is it like ACH where you can just say I want my money back and get your money back, or is it like a card, the card networks where no, there's actually like a dispute process that you go through and you can challenge that, because that would be the other. To me, the two big problems with ACH are, the delay is a big deal. The fact
Right.
that I can make an ACH payment but not have the money, like when I use my Visa card or my MasterCard, if I don't have money, then the transaction won't go through, Whereas with ACH, it will.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's the fundamental weakness. And then the other one is the fact that even if I do make a payment, if I make a payment with my Visa card and then I want to file a chargeback, there's a framework for that. And then I can, I can say to the merchant, hey, no, I'm going to dispute this. But then the merchant has the opportunity to show proof and win that chargeback. With ACH, that's not the case. The consumer can just say, "No, I want my money back," and the bank's like, "Okay," and the
Right.
merchant can't do anything about it. They have to literally go outside of the payment network and actually take that consumer to small claims court to get their money back. So I think it's very interesting, and I think it's we had a situation, Patty, just the other day. We had a self storage client, and what happened was one of their tenants that was renting a unit, renting several units actually. They made I'm trying to remember exactly how this worked now. They made some payments and they had like already moved out or something, and so they made like there was like $1,000 in payments for time when they weren't at the unit or something like
Uh-huh.
that. So they reached out to our client and said, we want a refund, right? And so
Right.
our client was like, okay. And so they sent them a refund. Meanwhile, at the same time, they reached out to their bank and said, we want our ACH back. And so they
Oh
pulled the
wow.
ACH back. And so they got double the money. And our client called us and is like, what can I do about this? And we're like, you can take them to small claims court. You can call them. You can try to grab the money again if you really want to, but like, there's nothing we can do about that. Like, they're allowed to do that. I said, I was like, basically, they just did the equivalent of writing you a bad check. I mean,
Right.
so do what you would do if they wrote you a bad check. So anyway, all that to say, I'm interested in RTP because I'm wondering, as I look at it now, it doesn't really seem to solve any of those problems, but
Right.
I'm hoping that that technology down the road will solve some of those problems. I really think that there's actually like a huge opportunity there for an intermediary, but it almost has to be the government. But we almost need like a bank to bank or ACH or RTP. We need some way to move money from one bank account to another that's actually regulated by a third party that can handle disputes and things like that, like it is with the card networks.
Like it is with the card networks, yeah. And I mean, Notcha would be the ideal, um,
Yes, for sure.
but
Yes, but they
again,
don't. But they don't do
no,
that.
no.
So,
So, well, next up, a new report from J.D. Power shows that small business satisfaction with credit cards is rising. Year over year improvement in customer satisfaction is highest among financially unhealthy small businesses, which I find very interesting.
mm,
That's because credit cards and the rewards programs have become a critical business tool for these businesses, the firm said. Now, the research revealed that credit cards are used by 89% of small businesses for business purchases, making them the most frequent form of payment by a wide margin.
mm,
About 1 in 5 small businesses also use buy now, pay later.
mm,
Again, financially
interesting.
unhealthy companies are more likely users.
Of course.
Now,
Interesting.
there's a downside to all this data that JD Power reported, and that is that surcharges are a turnoff.
Mm,
Um, More than 1 in 4 small businesses don't use credit cards if there's a surcharge assessed.
mm.
And the overall favorability rating for credit cards also falls among those businesses that choose not to use their cards because of surcharges.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that
And I
was
and I think
really
that
interesting.
and I think that does make sense too because, you know, generally these B2B transactions are larger. Um,
Right,
I tell people all the time now that if you get above $500 average ticket, you are going to notice a difference in behavior when it comes to differential pricing of any kind, whether that's surcharge, dual pricing, cash
right,
discounting. You get above 2,000 and you're going to have a very significant issue. Now, on the consumer side, what we found is you can still kind of get away with it if you offer um, compliant surcharging on these really high ones because they have that ability to go debit or the ability to go ACH. But when you talk about a business, the whole reason that they're using the credit card is that they don't have the money or they don't want to spend the money right now.
right,
They
right,
want the credit. So I think in the B2B transactions, it gets a little bit more tricky there. And I think if Roger McNamara was on here from Visa, he would be telling
right,
us that you have to be careful there because there's no reason, even a compliant surcharge there. It's like you're getting so much benefit as a business to business transaction. You're getting so much benefit by having somebody pay you today versus 30, 60, 90 days from now, that you don't want to penalize them. You want to encourage them to pay with a card because then you actually got your money.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, also an interesting aside is that cash and buy now, pay later get the biggest lifts when businesses opt for alternatives to credit cards. So, I found cash doesn't surprise me, but the buy now, pay later I found was an interesting aside.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week, James.
Awesome, Patty. Thank you so much as always. Always enjoy the insights, and looking forward to next week and seeing what's happening in payments the next week.
Yes, indeed.